my angels, it's Hailey Reese, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am so grateful that you are here, and I really and truly do hope, as always, that you're having an absolutely incredible morning, afternoon, or night, whatever it is for you when this video finally reaches you. Today, we are back once again with yet another Glitch in the Matrix video, except things are getting far stranger and reality, well, people are beginning to question what exactly reality is. From what we know, reality is not supposed to break, but lately, it feels like the world is glitching more than ever. Over the past year on my channel, we've been exploring a ton of Glitch in the Matrix experiences, and more specifically, the rise in these experiences. But it seems once again that things are taking yet another deeper turn, and that the Matrix may really be starting to crack open. Now, whether or not these are glitches in the Matrix that keep being experienced, or if it really is an overlapping to a parallel or alternate reality, I will leave that up to you. But whatever it is, something is going on, and what we perceive reality to be may be very different than the truth. People all around the world are reporting even stranger anomalies. Once again, with the memories that don't match and the timelines that twist. Then there's the impossible coincidences that really can't be explained. These types of experiences definitely are not new per se, but they are becoming more and more frequent. And furthermore, they're becoming so much bigger. What if I told you that it's been said that people from other worlds or alternate realities have been visiting our world? Or, even more so, finding themselves within our world even by mistake. It seems like the line between our world and alternate or parallel realities is becoming thinner. And there's a lot of theories as to why this could be. Just this week alone, I have been tagged in hundreds of videos with all of these experiences, and I've been receiving countless messages filled with all of these bone-chilling encounters. And the more that I dig and the deeper I go, the less answers I really come up with. So today, we are once again going to explore these experiences. And if there is any video of mine that I would love for you to watch to the end, it's definitely this one. Because when I tell you that these experiences I'm about to share with you kept me up all night with my mind just going to a million places, I am absolutely not exaggerating. But without further ado, let's get into this, because there is so much that I want to cover and talk about in today's video. Firstly, starting off with the idea of missing time. Now, this concept and this theory isn't new to us, especially here on my channel, but lately it seems as though more and more people are coming forward with experiences missing time. People are coming forward saying that they're losing time, they're losing days, and that they aren't even in the world that they had initially started in. Now, bear with me on that. This will be an entire video in and of itself, but even just this past week, I went down a whole rabbit hole online, reading through all of these different things that we've been taught ever since childhood, or that I had thought I'd been taught ever since childhood. Now, some of these things are smaller and could be explained like false teaching, or just people not really knowing yet what the proper answer was to give. But there are other ones that are being released that are just so much bigger than comprehension and lead you to wonder and question, why is it that we've all been taught different things? And why is it that the truth that we once knew has apparently never existed in our reality? Now, one of these things, which is definitely on the smaller side but left me a little bit puzzled, was the idea that our blood isn't blue before it hits oxygen. Now, when I first learned this the other day and went down that rabbit hole, I was really, really confused, because I specifically remembered the classes where I was taught that blood is blue until it comes out of the skin and then it turns red. And we were even shown, at least in my school and in my memory, examples and videos demonstrating how this would look. But it turns out that that's never been the case. Blood is always red. Now, obviously, that's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things, but when you line it up with a whole bunch of things that we've all thought that we were taught throughout the years that seemingly never existed in our current reality, you begin to question if perhaps you've been taught this in an alternate reality. So in these threads and in these forums and in these chat conversations, people start coming forward with the idea that perhaps we're not in the original timeline that we started in, that perhaps we've jumped to another timeline or an alternate reality or universe, and perhaps we've been doing so throughout the entirety of our lives, meaning that we could all be from different original timelines if that theory were true. Now, this right here is something that has always fascinated me. The idea of quantum leaping, or more specifically even quantum immortality, is a subject that I will just never grow tired of looking into and exploring. But recently, a story surfaced online that brought back the idea of time travelers, or even just travelers from alternate realities or universes. So if you haven't heard it, it took the internet by a storm, but the story went that at JFK, a woman arrived at the airport seemingly normal and looking to travel. It said that everything about this woman was normal, from the way that she had dressed to the way that she interacted with people, and she had a passport that appeared to be 100% real and normal too. But if you looked a little bit closer at the woman's passport, you would notice that the passport was from a place called Taranza. Now, obviously, Taranza isn't a country on any of our maps. And so the airport workers were pretty confused when the woman handed over this passport trying to travel. Upon further inspection of the passport, the story goes that they looked at the passport and everything other than the name on the passport seemed to be up to par for a real passport. But when they looked a little bit closer, they noticed that the passport had stamps from other countries that they absolutely didn't recognize because they weren't on any of our world maps. Apparently, the woman stood there and was trying to point on the map to show where she was from, and they look at her and tell her that Taranza is not a real country or a real place. And it is said that at this point, the woman looks at them and says, "This isn't my world," or "wrong world." And as they continue to watch the woman in the following minutes of this confusing interaction, it said that the woman just seemingly disappears, vanishes almost into thin air without any trace. Now, before we go any further than this, I do need to say that I have seen videos of this alleged interaction, and they are absolutely AI. And upon further inspection, there are tons of articles saying that this is nothing more than an internet hoax. So why am I mentioning it in today's video? Well, because this specific woman isn't the only who has traveled here from other worlds or other universes, and isn't the first experience we've heard of where somebody either ends up in the wrong world or meets somebody who ended up in our world but wasn't from here. There are many encounters where individuals from our world have said to come in contact with other creatures, beings, or just even entities not from our universe and not from our world. And in those cases, it's said that those in power have covered up or concealed that from us. Apparently, they've done a pretty good job at tying up the loose ends when experiences like this begin to surface. But again, as the matrix seems to be cracking and realities seem to be overlapping more and more, people have shared not only their personal experiences with either meeting someone from a world different than ours, but even finding themselves in another world. And it leads you to wonder, are these just online rumors, or is that what we're supposed to think? But as I'm exploring these theories, guys, as I'm digging through all these different reports of people who believe that throughout the infinite different universes and possibilities where we exist out there, that perhaps there is something going on where it's beginning to crack, and we're beginning to see glimpses into these other realities, these parallel universes, and different timelines where things were played out or done differently. I was tagged in a TikTok that gave me absolute chills. This video gave me so many chills, especially after everything that I've been researching and digging throughout that night, that I just knew I had to share the story with you guys. So the video that I got sent was from a TikTok account, I hope that I'm pronouncing this right, called Kajsa Scary Spooky Stories. I will have it linked down below. But essentially, she begins telling a story that was emailed to her about an experience that a woman had with a dream that seemed far too real to have only just been a dream. Now, before we get into it, what I found really interesting about this was the question that she raised in this video. Do people believe this is a paranormal experience? Do they believe, it was some sort of crossover in timelines? Or in the case where I was sent the video, I was told that it could possibly be a glitch in the matrix. Now we'll go through the experience very quickly here. Again, I'll have the original linked down below. But by the end, I'll tell you guys what I think here, because I think all of these experiences are beginning to tie in and paint a much bigger picture, telling the true story of what's going on. Okay, so she begins to tell of this woman who sent in an email who had very sadly lost her husband in 2015 after he had taken his own life. Her husband was super young, only 27 years old, and was an Army veteran. The two of them shared 5 children together, and in 2018, 3 years after she'd lost her husband, she was still really struggling with the loss and moving forward with life when she'd lost the love of her life the way she had. It's said that when she would lie in bed, she would often cry herself to sleep, just longing for the life that she once had. But one night, she would go to bed and drift off to sleep, and the dream that she would have would be so real, and I believe absolutely life-changing. In this dream, as she opens up her eyes, she's suddenly inside of a hospital room. And in the hospital room, she's surrounded by her children and her husband. Now, I'm sure that she's very confused, because in this dream, she mentions that throughout the entire thing, it is as real as the life that she lives now. It's as real as the world that I perceive and the world that you perceive. It feels like real life. And she's being told that she'd been hit by a car and that she was in a coma until she'd woken up. In this life that she'd suddenly woken up to after going to sleep that night, her husband had never died. Everything that she'd experienced, all the grief that she'd been navigating through, was all just a really bad dream. And it seemed like it was something that she dreamt up while she'd been in this coma, and she was suddenly wide awake and back in her real life. Or so it felt. What was really weird was that in the life that she was now perceiving as a dream, so the one prior to her going to sleep and waking up, her husband had actually been in an accident after being hit by a drunk driver and had sustained a brain injury prior to everything else that would take place. But in this life and in this dream, she was being told that she was actually the one who had been in the accident. Regardless, she was overwhelmed with just so much happiness and joy. And I can't even imagine if you think that you've lost the love of your life and you just wake up and it's all just been this bad dream. And yes, you've been in an accident, but now you're back and reunited with your husband and your kids. It must have been this beautiful and incredible moment. Now, it's said that this woman went on to live an entire lifetime with him. It was as real to her as the world that we all perceive is, and they would raise their kids together, and their kids would go on and meet their partners and have kids, and they would become grandparents, and they're growing old together, traveling, just doing life together. And one night, it gives me chills at this part. I couldn't even believe it when I heard it, but one night she's laying there with her husband, and they're holding each other, and they're talking about what might be waiting for them on the other side. And it said that that's when he closed his eyes and he whispered to her softly, "You still have another life to live. I love you dearly." And that was when she wakes back up in her original bed, back in her nightmare where she'd no longer had her husband. She suddenly is woken back up in her bed, the one that she'd fallen asleep in alone. In this reality, she gets up and she sees her children all still young, and she's back in the world that she thought had just been a bad dream. But she had lived this entire life there, like not just a night. To her, it felt like an entire lifetime. Like, could you imagine if you just woke up right now and you were told that everything that you've lived, everything that you've done up until this point was just a dream? Oof, it's the lamp theory, and it gives me the chills every single time. Now, obviously, she was absolutely devastated and was mourning the life that she thought that she had back for months, this life that she had lived, the years that she had lived. She had grown old with him. This life had felt like it was the nightmare, and that life was actually the truth. And what was really interesting as I was listening to this story was that certain details of the other world would happen here too. Her oldest would be expecting a baby girl just as they had in the other life. But here's what's really strange. Her experience is absolutely chilling and in a way so tragically beautiful. And I say that because it's absolutely heartbreaking. I can't imagine thinking that you have your dream life back and then waking up to realize that your person is no longer here. But also on the spiritual and paranormal side and the truth that we are just these spiritual beings having an earthly experience, to me, it's beautiful regardless of what space they were in when they lived it, that they got to experience that beautiful life that they had envisioned with each other, even if just for a brief moment in time. And what's interesting to consider is the fact that time does not exist in the way that we perceive it. Time is man-made. Past, present, and future all exist simultaneously. And what's interesting when it comes to the spirit world is the difference in the way that time is perceived there and time is perceived here. A blink of an eye there could be an entire lifetime here. And so for me personally, it really is not too far-fetched to imagine that even in another realm, in another world, in a parallel reality, whatever the case may be, that it's possible, if we look at time the way that I've just explained, that she had in fact spent an entire lifetime in this world with the love of her life. And that part is beautiful, but it's also tragic in the sense that it almost must have felt like mourning it a second time all over again, losing your person twice now instead of just the once. But there are so many people having these experiences. There are countless experiences coming forward where people feel as though they've lived an entire life while asleep, or even in some cases, actually while they were in comas, they lived these entire lives. We've talked a lot about the lamp theory and the idea that it's possible to mourn a life that you feel you lived but are being told you never did. But what is going on here? Are there cracks in what we perceive as reality? Are things really overlapping more and more? Or are we just awakening more and more to what's going on? Now, I don't know if you guys would want a video on this, but cosmically, there is a lot going on right now that could tie into some of these experiences, and we can definitely expand more on that in an upcoming video. But I want to know from you guys, what do you think is going on here? Do you think things are overlapping? Do you think that people's experiences are becoming more and more frequent? Or do you think these are just stories being passed around? I would absolutely love to know what you think down in the comment section below. But that is it for today's video, because I could talk about this for hours on end. Again, I am so into this stuff. I go down so many rabbit holes. I watch so many videos. I read so many different chat conversations. It's crazy. So if you guys want more of these videos, make sure to let me know, because I not only love researching this stuff, but I love going through it in my mind and trying to figure out what is already a very, very complicated human earthly experience. But I love making the videos, and you guys seem to love them too. So I'd love to make more in the future if you guys did enjoy it. If you guys are new to my channel, or you are just not yet subscribed, but you do enjoy my content, I would absolutely love it more than you would ever know if you would go ahead and click that subscribe button. And please give this video a big thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Remember, my loves, to do all things with kindness. And until tomorrow, I love you. Bye, guys.